السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأصلي وأسلم على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. رب زدنا علما، رب زدنا علما، رب زدنا علما نافعا. آمين. We are discussing about a very important component of the Islamic worldview, which is political thought. Another great Muslim scholar and political thinker in our legacy is al-Imam Abu al-Hasan al-Mawardi, rahimahullah, who lived in the 5th century after Hijrah. He died in 450 after Hijrah. So he's also a very early scholar, like al-Imam al-Juwayni, rahimahullah, about whom we discussed in the previous sessions. Imam al-Mawardi comes before al-Imam al-Juwayni, rahimahullah. But the political, social, economic context is the same. The Abbasid Khilafah, the last period of the Abbasid Khilafah, when it started to crumble and fall into decline. Al-Imam al-Mawardi does not need any introduction. He is a great Shafi'i jurist also, who contributed to the Shafi'i mazhab and fiqh generally by his great works like Al-Hawi, which has been published in more than 20 volumes, and other great books. But his political thought appears in his book Al-Ahkam al-Sultaniyah. Al-Ahkam al-Sultaniyah. Ahkam is plural of hukum, which means rulings, and Sultaniyah refers to Sultan, the political authority, in which he explained his political thought. And this is from the early works on the administrative aspect of the political system in Islam, particularly the political system which was prevalent in his time in the form of the Abbasid Khilafah and the small dynasties, states, which seceded from the Abbasid Khilafah and declared their independence, with retaining the symbolic relevance of the Abbasid Khilafah. Like in the khutbah, they would mention the name of the Khalifa on the currency and the coins. The Khalifa, the Khilafah, the mark of the Khilafah would be present, so on and so forth. So it was symbolic. Because these small states and dynasties, when they realized that the Abbasid Khilafah is crumbling and it is about to end, they started focusing on their own territories, strengthening their dynasties, and created an independent rule in itself. So in the later period of the Abbasid Khilafah, we have small, Muslim world was divided into small dynasties and states, some of which proved very fruitful later on, and they became great powers, like the Seljuki Turks. And some others ended in a short span of time, like the Buwayhids, al-Buwayhiyun, who were Shia. They ruled for a century, 100 years, and their dynasty state ended. It was a short span of time in which it went into decline and ended. But the Turks, they ruled the Muslim world for a longer period of time. The Seljuki Turks, the Seljuki state. And after them, we have the great Uthmani Khilafah, the Ottoman Khilafah. So Muslim world was divided into small states, and the Shia dynasties became very influential in that time. We also discussed about this in when we talked about the political context in the times of Imam al-Juwayni. We said Shia were very influential. The Fatimids and the Buwayhids, the Sunni Abbasid Khilafah was struggling, and the Seljukis, they had started to rise. So basically, al-Imam al-Mawardi also lived in a very difficult time when Muslim world was struggling and was divided into small dynasties and states, and the great Abbasid Khilafah was beginning to end. Abbasid Khilafah can be divided into, historically, can be divided into 4 periods. The first Abbasid period is from year 132 to 232, 100 years. And the dates are in Hijri. The first Abbasid period. And this is the golden period of the Abbasid Khilafah, when they started to rise and became a great power, 100 years. The second period in the Abbasid Khilafah is when we have the Turkish influence on the Abbasid Khilafah, particularly in the military, when the non-Arab Turks began to create impact and influence in the military, and through the military in the political class. So this is the second Abbasid period, from 232 to 334. Again, a good period of time. The third Abbasid Khilafah is the influence of the Buwayhids, al-Nufudh al-Buwayhi, the Shia, the 12er Shia dynasty. It became a very important force in the Muslim world, and in turn it influenced the political hierarchy in the Abbasid Khilafah, and the Abbasids had to deal with it. The Khulafa had to deal with it. And Imam al-Mawardi also acted as an ambassador between these 3 states: the Abbasids, the Abbasi Khilafah, the Buwayhids, the Buwayhi state, and the Seljukis, in order to solve the disputes, political disputes, with dialogue. He was an ambassador between these 3 important Muslim states, or we can say between the Khilafah and these 2 small dynasties or states. So this also means that he was part of the realpolitik, which we discussed about in the previous sessions. He was part of the realpolitik. He was not only a political thinker who was writing about politics in his library or room, but he actually engaged in the politics. So he was a diplomat, and diplomacy is a very important political duty or political reality. So the third Abbasid period is the influence of the Buwayhids. Okay, so this relationship of the Abbasids with these small states, sometimes it would be in shambles, sometimes they would manage to come on the common terms, so on and so forth. So this is from 334 after Hijrah to 447 after Hijrah. The last period is the influence of the Seljuki Turks. When Seljuks, they rose to power, and they finished the Buwayhid Empire also. And they became a very influencing force in the Muslim world, and the Abbasids had to deal with them. And eventually they became a great state. This is from 447 to 657. So al-Imam al-Mawardi, this is the political context which will help us to understand the thought of Imam al-Mawardi. And for that matter, this is the method we should use in understanding the thought of our scholars in any time, because the age in which a particular scholar lives has great influence on his thought. So Imam al-Mawardi belongs to the third period, which is between 334 to 447, because he died in 450 after Hijrah. And this is the times in which we have the Buwayhi influence on the Muslim world and the Abbasid Khilafah. So he worked with Buwayhis and they respected him. They gave him great titles, Qadiyul Aqd al-Quda, the Chief Justice, the greatest judge. And he was very near to the Buwayhids, in spite of the fact that they were Shia, and al-Imam al-Mawardi was a Sunni scholar and a Sunni political thinker. So his political thought can be understood from this book, Al-Ahkam al-Sultaniya, or we can say this is the primary source to understand his political thought. And as we said, there are secondary sources for every scholar. All his books serve as the sources to understand his thought, particularly his work on fiqh, because politics is part of the fiqh, or a branch of fiqh. However, we must go first to the primary sources, the works directly written on the topic. So this is number one. Number two is another great book of Imam al-Mawardi, which is not directly on the topic, but he has discussed some very interesting themes in this work. It is Adab-ud-Deen wa-Dunya. Adab-ud-Deen wa-Dunya. The etiquettes of religion and dunya. This is a comprehensive book which explains all the adab of Islam. The adab of dunya, a Muslim, how should we behave as a Muslim? What are the akhlaq, what are the adab we should adopt in worldly affairs and the religious affairs? It's a comprehensive book because adab is a comprehensive term in which we can summarize all religion. And adab is a better word to connote education in Islam. So usually the common word which is used, or the term which is used for education in Arabic is ta'lim. Ta'allum is educating, the process of educating ourselves, and ta'lim is educating others. So ta'lim is the best and the most common term which is used. However, ta'deeb is a better word. And terminology is very important in thought. In thought process, thinking patterns, terminology is very important. You can refer to the great Malaysian thinker and philosopher, Dr. Naqib al-Attas, his short treatise on education to understand the difference between these terms. And how does ta'deeb, which he takes from a famous narration in which the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Addabani Rabbi fa ahsana ta'dibi." Allah educated me and he perfected my education. Or Allah gave me adab and he perfected my ta'deeb. So ta'deeb is a better word from many angles and perspectives. He has explained it. Adab-ud-Deen wa-Dunya. So if we can summarize whole religion, whole Islam into one term, we can say it's adab. Adab with Allah, adab is plural. Adab with Allah, adab with our own self, and adab with human beings. This is a beautiful work of Arabic literature also. If you want to understand and taste the eloquent Arabic, this is one of the best works on that. It is a work of adab and Arabic literature at the same time. In this book, we said Ahkam al-Sultaniya, it mostly deals with administrative affairs. It's about administration. How does a ruler implement the political principles? How does he actually rule? That's why we said from this perspective, he also practiced realpolitik. He was more concerned about practicalities of the political system. So he talks about the Khalifa, the hierarchy, the famous classification. And in that, he came with some original ideas. We will come to that. But the hierarchy, which was present already in his times, the Khalifa, he would have the ministers and different governors, the authorities, the responsibilities, spoils of war, how should they be distributed, Amr bil Ma'ruf, Nahi anil Munkar, which he calls al-Hisbah, enjoining good, forbidding evil, taxes, all these things. So it is more about administrational affairs, and we can extract the political theory also from it. However, in the second work, Adabud Deen wa Dunya, he gives, he talks more about theory, political theory, and the principles of politics in Islam. So, Adabud Deen wa Dunya, the adab of Deen and Dunya. In the second part, because political theory, politics comes in Dunya, the worldly affairs. So, Babu Adab Dunya, in the chapter about etiquettes of Dunya, in the fasl of understanding how can we run our worldly affairs based on the principles of Islam, he talks about politics. We have fi qawaidi salah dunya, understanding the principles of reforming our worldly affairs. He says, i'lam, you must know, understand, anna ma bihi tasluhu dunya hatta tasira ahwaluha muntazimatan wa umuruha multaimatan sittatu ashya. You must understand that the worldly affairs or dunya is reformed until it becomes muntazima and multaima, and dunya become balanced and productive. Until the ahwal of dunya, conditions of dunya, are based on the principles of Islam. They are 6 matters, 6 things. If you perfect these 6 things, your dunya will be reformed. Hiya qawaiduha wa in tafarra'at. These 6 are the foundations, even if they can be classified into branches. So these 6 qawaid, these 6 principles or foundations, can be divided into many sub branches, but they always remain the qawaid. What are they? Number 1, deenun muttaba'un, religion which is obeyed. So dunya, and he talks about human beings generally, not only about Muslims. These are the 6 foundations for a particular society, or for the reform of the social system in a particular age. So if these 6 matters are present and they are the foundations of that society, we can say that their worldly affairs are in equilibrium. Number 1 is deenun muttaba. They have a religion which they follow. Number 2 was sultanun qahir, dominant political power, dominant political authority. So we have a dominant political power which governs that society and people. The political reality is not in anarchy. Number 3, adlun shamil, comprehensive justice. Adlun shamil. And these 2 are interconnected. We'll come to that later. Adl, justice, and sultan, political power, are interconnected. This is number 3. Number 4, wa amnun am, and common peace. Peace is prevalent in that society. Peace. Number 5, wa khisbun darun, and prosperity, which is for everyone. Khisbun darun means prosperity, economic prosperity, you can call it. And the last is wa amalun fasihun, and a vast hope. So, or we can say equal opportunity. Okay, let me write these down here. So he says there are 6 things which serve as the foundation for Islah of dunya. Number 1 is Deenul Muttaba, obeyed religion. Number 2 is Sultanul Qahir, dominant political authority. Number 3, we didn't say ruler, because ruler is not ruler is the head of the political authority. Political authority is more than just a ruler. Number 3 is Adlun Shamil, justice. It is a just society. Political authority is not despotic. Justice prevails, and justice is present between the subjects and people who live in that society. Number 4 is peace. And here by peace, he means the absence of war. People are living in, they have understanding with each other. They are not fighting each other. Civil war is not present. There is peace. And these are the foundations of creating a civilization also. If one of these things is missing, you cannot create a civilization. Number 5 is wa khisbun darun, prosperity, economic prosperity. And number 6 is opportunity, equal opportunity or vast opportunity. Let's call it opportunity. Now, so these are the 6 foundations for Islah, for the reform of dunya. Then he explains all these qawaid one by one. And he talks about, and you can see from these 6, 5 are about the political system. Religion is also important, and we will see how he connects the political authority with religion. But religion is not directly connected with the political authority. These 5 are. We have a dominant political authority. We have a strong ruling class who are in control of the affairs, and they are not despotic. And they apply justice, peace, prosperity, economic prosperity, and opportunity, equal opportunity in the subjects. So we can say from 2 to 6, these 5 are directly connected with political authority. And he has explained these qawaid one by one. And he gives religion preference over all these qawaid. He says religion is the strongest. For example, he says here, فَثَبَتَ أَنَّ الدِّينَ مِنْ أَقْوَى الْقَوَائِدِ فِي صَلَاحِ الدُّنْيَا. It is established that the religion is the strongest foundation for the reform of dunya. وَهُوَ الْفَرْضُ الْأَوْحَدِ فِي صَلَاحِ الْآخِرَةِ. And it is the only reason for the reform of akhirah. وَبِهِ كَانَ وَمَا كَانَ بِهِ صَلَاحُ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ فَحَقِيقٌ بِالْعَاقِلِ أَنْ يَكُونَ بِهِ مُتَمَسِّكًا وَعَلَيْهِ مُحَافِظًا. And the foundation on which reform of dunya and akhirah, success of dunya and akhirah is based, it is important for an aqil, for a person who uses his intellect, that he gives it the primary place in his thought and practice. And then he explains it with a hadith, and he generally quotes in explaining these concepts. He quotes the early politicians in this work from the Persians, particularly from the East. If you read this book, you will see from the Persians he quotes philosophers, he quotes the great the scholars of literature and language, so on and so forth. That's why this is also a book of literature. Okay, let's read from the second qaida. He says, وَأَمَّا الْقَائِدَةُ الثَّانِيَةُ. We will just take the main points. We cannot read the whole fasl. The second foundation is فَهِيَ سُلْطَانٌ قَاهِرٌ. It is the dominant political authority. تأتلف برهبته الأهواء المختلفة وتجتمع بهيبته القلوب المتفرقة وتنكف بسطوته الأيدي الغالبة وتنقمع من خوفه النفوس المتعاندة. Basically, he says this the main fruit of the dominant political authority is creating harmony and unity between people. So he says تأتلف برهبته, by the fear of political authority, different ahwa, different desires they come together. So people don't create anarchy. وتجتمع بهيبته القلوب المتفرقة. The hearts, the divided hearts, they are united. وتنكف بسطوته الأيدي الغالبة. By its dominance and power, those the hands which may transgress, or people who may have some power from the subjects, economic power, political power, they come on the back foot. Yani they don't transgress. وتنقمع من خوفه النفوس المتعاندة. And the nufus, people who are not balanced and they want to create fasad and corruption, they stop. It becomes a hurdle for them, because they know that if we tread this path, we will face punishment and destruction on the hands of the political authority. Why? لأن في طباع الناس من حب المغالبة على ما آثروه. Because it is in the nature of human beings that they love مغالبة, dominance on others. They want to be dominant. And if everyone wants to be dominant, it will be, and they apply this, they follow this nature, it would be anarchy in the system and the society. So this is the main reason, and this is the main purpose of the dominant political authority. So then he says, وهذه العلة المانعة من الظلم لا تخلو من أحد أربعة أشياء. He quotes a famous poet, Arab poet, Mutanabbi, very famous. He quotes a couplet which explains this mas'ala. He says, Al-Mutanabbi has rightly said, لا يسلم الشرف الرفيع من الأذى حتى يراق على جوانبه الدم. The honor is never protected from harm until the blood flows around it. Until it is protected by blood. Honor can never be protected until you sacrifice yourself for it, and until you fight to protect your honor. If you become very weak, you don't have any power, and you're not ready to sacrifice yourself for your honor, no one will respect you. Your honor will not be protected. لا يسلم الشرف الرفيع من الأذى حتى يراق على جوانبه الدم. Literally it means الشرف الرفيع, the great honor, cannot be protected from harm until blood is spilled around it. Okay. والظلم من شيم النفوس فإن تجد ذا عفة فلإلة لا يظلم. Zulm, oppression, transgression is from the nature. It is in the nature of human beings. It is from the qualities of nufus. If you find a person who does not oppress, and he ذا عفة, he is kind and just, فلإلة لا يظلم, there will be a reason that he is not oppressing. So oppression is in the nature of human beings. If you find someone who is just and kind in his behavior, it means there is a particular reason that he is not oppressing. Then Imam al-Mawardi says, وَهَذِي الْعِلَّةُ الْمَانِعَةُ مِنَ الظُّلْمِ لَا تَخْلُو مِنْ أَحَدِ أَرْبَعَةِ أَشْيَاء. This illah, which the great Arab poet Mutanabbi points to, the illah, the reason a person does not oppress. Oppression is in his nature, dhulm, because every human being wants to become dominant on others. This illah al-mani'ah, this protective reason which protects a human being from dhulm, it is based on 4 principles. Number 1, imma aqlun zajirun. Number 1 is aqlun zajirun, intellect which stops him from dhulm. Yani this person has good intellect, he has aql. He reflects on the consequences of zulm, oppression, and also the fruits of justice. So he adopts justice and kindness as a quality because he knows its fruits are sweet, and he avoids oppression. This is number 1. Number 2, deenun hajizun, religion. He follows religion. He has a religion in which oppression is prohibited, and this becomes a hajiz, this becomes a veil between him and oppression. Number 3, sultanun radi'un. There is a power higher than this person, particularly the political authority, which stops him from dhulm. So he may commit dhulm, but he has a higher power, whether it's political or legal, and he reflects on the consequences of his oppression. He may be put to trial, he may be punished, so he does not oppress. أو عجز صاد, or he is incapable, he is not capable of oppression, he does not have the necessary qualities of oppression. So he says these are the 4 things on which this illah, the reason which stops a person from dhulm, are based. إذا تأملتها, if you reflect on these 4 things, لم تجد لها خامسا يقترن بها, you will not find a 5th reason. These are the 4 reasons. ورهبة السلطان أبلغها. However, the fear of sultan, the fear of political authority, political power, is the most important or the most effective from these 4. لأن العقل والدين ربما كان مضعوفين, because aql and deen, intellect and religion, may sometimes be weak. A person may prefer his desire over his aql, or his religion, he may prefer his desire over his religion, or he has poor understanding, wrong understanding of religion. He may think that my religion teaches me to oppress, or his religion is distorted, for example. لأن العقل والدين ربما كان مضعوفين أو بداعي الهوى مغلوبين. His religion and deen, his religion and aql, intellect, may be weak or may be dominated by hawa, desire. So a person prefers his desire over his aql. And this book also contains great material for understanding understanding human psychology from Islamic perspective, nafs. So فَتَكُونُ رَهْبَةُ السُّلْطَانِ أَشَدَّ زَجْرًا وَأَقْوَى رَدًا. And then we remain with only one thing, which is sultan, the political power, authority, which becomes the most important, and it is preferred on aql and religion. Then he quotes the famous ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and sayings of the Sahaba. For example, we have this famous saying of Sayyiduna Uthman radiyallahu anhu. He would say, "Inna Allah la yaza'u bis-sultani akthara ma yaza'u bil-Quran." And it has been attributed to Sayyiduna Umar also radiyallahu anhu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes, indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes by power, by authority, more than what he removes by Quran. So by Quran, we can remove doubts, we can educate people, and we know how non-Muslims are reading the Quran these days because of the war in Gaza and jihad in Palestine. But what Allah removes by power, if Muslims have political authority and power, Allah will remove by that more than what he removes by Quran. Removes means removing the evils from the society, the munkarat, the immoralities, so on and so forth. Yani this has been narrated as hadith of the Prophet sallallahu and saying of Umar radiyallahu an and Uthman radiyallahu an. And then we have other sayings of the scholars of language, the hukama, the philosophers, early philosophers, politicians. Okay, then this is the second qaida which he explains, Sultanun Qahir. The second principle or foundation of reforming dunya is dominant authority. And then he explains why is this dominant political authority, political power important. The third qaida, and before we move to the third qaida, he talks about some ikhtilafi matters between the fuqaha. Can we have more than one ruler for the Muslim world? We talked about this when we discussed about the practicality in Islamic political theory, the realpolitik. We discussed about al-Imam al-Juwayni, his opinion in about the divide which was present in his times. So he allowed more than one Khalifa because of necessity. We will not go into that. Here he talks about a very important masala, which is the responsibilities of the Sultan, the responsibilities of the ruler. And this is very important because we have a lot of confusion and expectations about this mas'ala in our times, because we have not seen the real Islamic political authority. What we have seen is the Western hegemony in the world and the nation states, and we don't know the real responsibilities of a ruler according to the Islamic principles. He says, وَالَّذِي يَلْزَمُ سُلْطَانَ الْأُمَّةِ مِنْ أُمُورِهَا سَبْعَةُ أَشْيَاء. He says, the Sultan of the Ummah, the ruler of the Ummah, the Khalifa, he has 7 responsibilities. These are the core 7 responsibilities of the ruler, according to Islam. Number 1, حِفْظُ الدِّينِ مِنْ تَبْدِيلٍ فِيهِ. Very important. And you will not find anyone in our times, whether in the East or the West, who talks about political authority, discussing or mentioning these, at least some of these responsibilities. Hifdhud Deen, the first responsibility is protecting the religion from distortion and change. وَالْحَثُّ عَلَى الْأَمَلِ بِهِ مِنْ غَيْرِ إِهْمَالٍ لَهُ, and implementing it actually in the public life. So protecting the religion by all means, from distortion, from change, by all means possible. Sometimes the Khalifa himself can be a scholar, as was the case in the early history of Islam. The 4 rightly guided Khulafa, they were great scholars and mujtahidun as well. Or he can take all measures, whatever is possible, to protect the religion. So protecting the religion is important, because religion, Islam, is the foundation of our political system. Yani, our purpose should not be only to create a strong ummah materially, or a strong Muslim state materially. Now, today, if we become very strong, or a particular Muslim country, let's take the example of Turkey or Malaysia, becomes the strongest in the world, economically and politically, what does it change? It will not change anything if we don't implement Islam. You will become materially more stronger, which will create prosperity for the people living in that state, or maybe people, Muslims living around that state. But how does it change our condition? This is another problem in creating a change in the ummah, and this dream of return of the khilafah and khalifa. We must understand these matters deeply. So we don't want a Muslim state like a Western nation state, which is prospering materially only. We don't want to create an entity like European Union, which is good materially, but in ethically they are in corruption. The most corrupt civilization in the world is the Western civilization now. In religion, in ethics, in all affairs, in ideology, in worldview. Yes, they are ahead of others in technology, materially. So we must fix our goals, understand. But if we have a state, an entity, an ummah, which is prospering materially, economically, politically, and also we implement, first and foremost, we implement Islam in a comprehensive manner. Again, implementation of Islam does not only mean hudud and some aspects. A comprehensive Islamic civilization, that is good. And it takes us to a deeper question, which I don't want to discuss now. Is the modern Western material reality, or the life, city life in particular, which is based on Western values and ideals, is it compatible with Islam or not? Yani, can we create a Muslim ummah or a strong political entity in the same atmosphere like we have, with the same values, with the same thinking patterns of human beings living in these times? Or we have to completely transform the reality? This is a question which is being discussed, particularly by those intellectuals who are engaged in critique of modernity, Western modernity, like Wail al-Hallaq, the famous Orientalist. We can call him Orientalist because he follows the same manhaj. Wail Hallaq is a famous Western Orientalist who has expertise in Islamic law. His book, The Impossible State, became very famous. This is his idea, and I agree with him in many matters. We must read this book, Impossible State, by Wail Hallaq. In this book, he says a Muslim state based on Islamic values is impossible in this system. Yani, this is not the ecosystem of that state. Even if we are able to create such an entity, it will fall quickly, because the human beings living now in current times, their thinking patterns are completely different. They are following the Western philosophies. The system, political system, economic system in control is completely Western. How can we? It would be patchwork. It would not be the real Muslim state. That's why he calls it impossible state, because Western modernity with its manifestation and the Muslim state are incompatible. So in order to create such an entity, we have to give it an ecosystem in which it will survive. So this is, according to him and according to many other scholars, a mistake which Islamists committed in this age and time. So because of enthusiasm, ignorance, or misinterpretation, they thought that a Muslim state can be created on the lines of a nation state, Western nation state, with the difference of only we have Sharia as our law, and in the parliament we will have Sharia, we will implement Islam, and that's it. This is a big problem, particularly if you accept that a Muslim state is expansionist in nature. It is not confined to a certain place or known boundaries. It is expansionist, and jihad is the primary hukum of Islam in that expansion. So how can you accept or create a Muslim state which you think is the ideal Muslim state with confined boundaries? So these are some points. That's why he says, after some pages, that the distortion and change which happens in religion, it has many reasons. The primary reason is decline of the political authority. And this is very deep. This is very deep. And this saying of Imam al-Mawardi, we mentioned it in the first session of Islamic worldview, that the decline of the political system in any civilization, it affects the religion of that civilization. It creates a change, like in Christianity and also Islam. That's why in our time you will see many modernists trying to make Islam compatible with the Western ideologies and creating change and distortion in the ahkam of Islam. And they are very famous. People accept them because of the dominant reality. Okay, we have 7 things. Number 1, حفظ الدين من تبديل فيه والحث على العمل به من غير إهمال له. Protection of religion. Number 2, حراسة البيضة والذب عن الأمة من عدو في دين أو باغي نفس أو مال. Protection of the state, or protection of that political entity by protecting the borders, creating peace inside, stability. Number 3, عمارة البلدان باعتماد مصالحها وتهذيب سبلها ومسالكها. Development of the state by relying on the masalih, understanding the benefits and masalih which are important to that state and people, and creating all forms of development. He mentions here the roads, healthcare, education, whatever is important. Number 4, تقدير ما لا يتولاه من الأموال بسنن الدين من غير تحريف في أخذها وإعطائها. Creating justice and balance in the revenue of the state. Amwal, whatever property, mal, belongs to the state, or it comes, and economy is very important. So creating a just economic system for the state. And revenue is a very important matter. That's why you will see from the early works on political economy, or generally political thinking or thought, Islamic political thought, are the books compiled by the great fuqaha on the economic aspect. Kitab al-Kharaj, the revenue of the state. Because without a stable economic system, without money, without revenue, you cannot create a just and balanced political system. You may have great ideas, you will have great people ruling the state, brilliant minds, but if you don't have money, it is difficult. For this reason, we can say, in deeply understanding the nusus, deeply understanding the ayat of the Quran and the Sunnah, we can extract the principles from it if we reflect. For example, the importance of economy, now it has become political economy. Economic and political system are intertwined, which is a very deep topic. in both politics and economics. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in a famous hadith, in explaining the importance of jihad, he said, "Ju'ila rizqi tahta dhilli rumhi." My rizq, my sustenance, has been kept under the shade of my spear. Why? Because jihad was a very important source of revenue for the Muslims in those times, for the Muslim state. Spoils of war. It was a great revenue. So the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ju'ila rizqi," my rizq. He does not mean himself, yani I am earning from jihad. He meant the Muslim ummah. "Ju'ila rizqi tahta dhilli rumhi." Subhanallah. See how he pointed to the importance of revenue, economics, in creating a political system. Number 5 is معاناة المظالم والأحكام بالتسوية بين أهلها واعتماد النصفة في فصلها. Adopting justice in disputes and creating justice between the subjects. Mazalim, the disputes, solving the problems with justice, not oppressing the subjects, not becoming a despot. Because zulm destroys the just political system. Adl is from the foundations of the stability and islah of a political system. Number 6, إقامة الحدود على مستحقيها من غير تجاوز فيها ولا تقصير عنها. Implementing the punishments, hudud, for the crimes. Okay, so that, and this is also part of creating the stability. Implementing the hudud. We know in history, civil wars, crimes, when they were not nipped in the bud, they destroyed many states. And civil warfare also destroyed the Muslim stability, the Muslim civilization. The civil warfare between the Sahaba, the martyrdom of Uthman radiyallahu anhu. Okay, so this is important. If there are crimes in a particular society, the ruling class should deal with it with iron fist. Number 7 is اختيار خلفائه في الأمور أن يكونوا من أهل الكفاية فيها والأمانة عليها. Selecting the people for political hierarchy, for political roles, with amana, with trust. Not being biased in that. So selecting Ahlul Kifaya, people of capability, those who are worth, those who are beneficial. So he says, فَإِذَا فَعَلَ مَنْ أَفْضَى إِلَيْهِ سُلْطَانُ الْأُمَّةِ مَا ذَكَرْنَا مِنْ هَذِهِ الْأَشْيَاءِ السَّبْعَةِ. If a person who has been given the responsibility of leading the ummah implements these 7 things, كَانَ مُؤَدِّيًا لِحَقِّ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى فِيهِمْ. He has fulfilled the rights of Allah in his subjects. مُسْتَوْجِبًا لِطَاعَتِهِمْ وَمُنَاصَحَتِهِمْ وَخُلُوصِ نِيَّاتِهِمْ. And obeying this ruler and being sincere with this ruler is the obligation of the is obligatory on the subjects. مستحقا لصدق ميلهم ومحبتهم, and he deserves the love and loyalty of the subjects. But if he does not fulfill these responsibilities, he does not deserve loyalty from the subjects. So he has quoted many ahadith for that. For example, we have this hadith which is in Sahih Muslim and Sunan at-Tirmidhi. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, خَيْرُ أَئِمَّتِكُمْ الَّذِينَ تُحِبُّونَهُمْ وَيُحِبُّونَكُمْ. Subhanallah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the best from the rulers amongst you, the best imams, the best rulers from you are those whom you love and they love you. وَشَرُّ أَئِمَّتِكُمْ, and the worst and the most evil from your rulers are those الَّذِينَ تُبْغِضُونَهُمْ وَيُبْغِضُونَكُمْ, are those whom you hate and they hate you. وَتَلْعَنُونَهُمْ وَيَلْعَنُونَكُمْ, and you and you curse them and they curse you. 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 And you curse them and they cur He says وهذا صحيح, and this is correct, because لأنه إذا كان ذا خير, because if the ruler is on khayr, on good, and he fulfills his responsibility, أحبهم وأحبوه, he loves them and they love him. وإذا كان ذا شر, but if he is on evil, أبغضهم وأبغضوه, he loves them, so he hates them and they hate him. Now, so this is the second principle. القاعدة الثانية فهي سلطان قاهر, dominant political power, authority, ruler, who must adopt these adab and fulfill his responsibilities in order to retain his power, create justice, peace, prosperity, equality between the subjects, and avoid despotism, oppression in his political system. And at the end, he has quoted from Harun al-Rashid, who was a great Abbasid Khalifa, fifth Abbasid Khalifa, very famous for his justice and kindness and love for knowledge and scholars. وحكي أن الرشيد حبس أبا الأتاهية. It has been narrated that once Harun al-Rashid, he imprisoned Abul Atahiya. Abul Atahiya was a great poet in his times, one of the best scholars of Arabic language. And he was near to Harun al-Rashid, and Abul Atahiya would also train his sons in literature, language, adab. And maybe for a reason, he put him in prison. فَكَتَبَ عَلَى حَائِطِ الْحَبْسِ. And Abul Atahiya, he wrote these, because he knew the love of Harun al-Rashid for poetry, and we know the adab, history, knowledge of the Arabs, they would compile it in poetry. فَكَتَبَ عَلَى حَائِطِ الْحَبْسِ. So he wrote these lines, couplets, on the wall in his prison cell. أَمَا وَاللَّهِ إِنَّ الظُّلْمَ لُؤْمُ وَمَا زَالَ الْمُسِيءُ هُوَ الظَّلُومُ إِلَى دَيَّانِ يَوْمِ الدِّينِ نَمْضِي وَعِنْدَ اللَّهِ تَجْتَمِعُ الْخُصُومُ سَتَعْلَمُ فِي الْمَعَادِ إِذَا الْتَقَيْنَا غَدًا عِنْدَ الْمَلِيكِ مَنِ الظَّلُومُ. He says, by Allah, zulm is a curse. وَمَا زَالَ الْمُسِيءُ هُوَ الظَّلُومُ. And whoever adopts evil, he is the oppressor. إِلَى دَيَّانِ يَوْمِ الدِّينِ نَمْضِي. On the last day, we will meet Dayyan, Allah, who is the just ruler, and he will put everyone to account. وَعِنْدَ اللَّهِ تَجْتَمِعُ الْخُصُومُ. And all disputes will meet in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. سَتَعْلَمُ فِي الْمَعَادِ إِذَا الْتَقَيْنَا. And you will surely know when we meet in the next life, tomorrow, غَدًا عِنْدَ الْمَلِيكِ مَنِ الظَّلُومُ. When we meet in front of the real king, Allah, you will know who is the real oppressor. فَأُخْبِرَ الرَّشِيدُ بِذَلِكَ. And Harun al-Rashid was informed about these couplets. فَبَكَى بُكَاءً شَدِيدًا. Harun al-Rashid, he cried a lot, and the couplets affected his personality. وَدَعَا أَبَا الْأَتَاهِيَ فَاسْتَحَلَّهُ. And he called Abu al-Atahiya, he released him from the prison. وَوَهَبَ لَهُ أَلْفَ دِينَارٍ وَأَطْلَقَهُ. And he gave him 1,000 dinars, and he freed him from the prison. Again, the matter of zulm and adl. Inshallah, we'll talk about the third principle in the foundation of the political system based on Islam, which is adlun shamilun, justice, comprehensive justice. Inshallah, in the next session, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us understanding and protect us from zulm, and grant us these qualities of which are important qualities for an individual and a ruler, particularly adl in our personal life and in our communities. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us rulers who fear Allah regarding us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us rulers who have honor and loyalty with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and the Ummah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide the Ummah and lift it from its slumber. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant glory, power, upliftment for the Ummah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by His beautiful names and exalted attributes to cure our sick, release our prisoners, support our mujahideen, and forgive our dead. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala nabi al-ummi.